How much does exit velocity matter to home runs? Find out next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Tuesday, February 1st. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White. And Scott recently wrote a great article, which you can find on CBSSports.com, describing the relationship between exit velocity and home runs this past season. Scott, what did you find?
So exit velocity had been a stat I mostly ignored for the purposes of projecting stats for players because it didn't seem to matter that much. But the thing is, StatCast has basically existed during the time the juice ball era existed. And so we don't really have a gauge for how much they correlate, right? Until last year, the end of the juice ball era, the introduction of these deadened balls. And I noticed that a lot of the players who disappointed us in the home run category had kind of middling exit velocities. And I wondered if there was a correlation there between home runs and exit velocity. The correlation this past year was 0.47. That's compared to 0.3 the year before, 0.38 the year before, 0.36 the year before. Basically, for the whole juice ball era, it was between 0.35 and 0.4. Last year was 0.47. The only other year in StatCast history that compares to that is 2015, which happened to be the one other year that StatCast existed that wasn't in line with the juice ball era. So yeah, I'm not saying it's the most important variable for home run production. There's also launch angle. There's also barrel rate. Those are probably a stronger correlation. But the point is that it's worth paying attention to exit velocity now for a player. And if somebody doesn't measure up in the home run category, it may be because they don't measure up there either.
All right, so who were some of those players who didn't measure up in home runs last year, and it correlated with their exit velocity? You wrote about 16 different players, but I'm going to highlight the top 5 that are being drafted right now. Xander Bogaerts, Francisco Lindor, Alex Bregman, Anthony Rendon, and DJ LeMahieu. Scott, who would you say of that group are you most worried about in this scenario?
So I'm pretty much done with DJ LeMahieu. And I'm worried that Francisco Lindor is being overvalued. People are presuming a bounce back in the home run category that maybe they shouldn't be. And what's interesting about those two is they're both around 75th percentile average exit velocity, which isn't that bad in isolation. But in LeMahieu's case, terrible launch angle. He so rarely puts the ball in the air that he really needs to make it count when he does. And I think that exit velocity, the threshold is just too... he's just not going to be able to quite meet that standard. It's not, the exit velocity isn't good enough for him to make good on the few fly balls he hits. And then in Lindor's case, I think he just sells out so hard for home runs, puts the ball in the air so much that while with that exit velocity, he could probably be a 25 homer guy still, maybe bounce back a little in that area. He's not going to be the 35 homer guy he was in the past, which is going to hurt the batting average. And just the fact that impacting that ball the same way just isn't going to result in as much damage anymore. That's another way it could hurt his batting average. And I don't know that we should expect much more than a 250 mark from Lindor, provided he doesn't make drastic changes to his batted ball profile.
All right. I heard Scott say somewhere in that analysis that Francisco Lindor could bounce back. So we argued a little bit on the full length podcast.
To 25 home runs,
I think I'm starting to have a little bit of an impact here on Scott's Lindor analysis, and I'm all about it. I like Francisco Lindor this upcoming season, but I do appreciate the analysis here, Scotty. Alex Bregman and Anthony Rendon. Those are 2 third basemen. Not a great position that we're looking at this upcoming season. Do you like buying back in on either, both, one or the other? What are you thinking?
Well, the good news in their cases is that I don't think they're being drafted in anticipation of a bounce back. Alex Bregman is the 76th player drafted on average. Anthony Rendon, the 107th on average. I think that's fine for both. I think they're perfectly suitable fallback options at a position that isn't very strong. But I wouldn't want to treat them as more than that. I wouldn't want to hold out on drafting a third baseman because, oh, look at the value for Alex Bregman. Oh, look at the value for Anthony Rendon. I don't know that it is going to be such a great value. Average exit velocity for them, 43rd percentile for Bregman, 45th percentile from Rendon. So in the bottom half of the league there. Bregman's, they both missed some time with injuries last year. Bregman's full season pace was 21 homers. Rendon's was 16 homers. I think probably they can do better than that, but we're talking like maybe 25 for Bregman, maybe 20 for Rendon, not the highs we've seen from him in the past. I mean, Bregman was a 41 homer guy in 2019. Clearly not going to see that again.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. We'll be back again on Wednesday morning. Bye-bye.